A classic tale storybook, Black Beauty. Black Beauty, story retold by Beryl Johnston, edited by Melanie J. Claydon, illustrated by Jenny Press. There were 6 colts in the meadow besides me. What fun we used to have galloping around the fields together. My earliest memories are of running by my mother's side in the day and laying close to her side at night. As I grew older and my coat shinier, many people came to admire me. My coat was as black as a rook's wing, except one white foot and a white diamond on my forehead. When I turned 4 years old, the farmer said it was time to break me in, so I had a bit put in my mouth, a saddle on my back, and iron shoes nailed to my feet. I was trained to pull a carriage, and one day in May I was sold to Squire Gordon. As the man came to fetch me, I remember my mother's parting advice: do your best wherever you are, and keep up your good name. So I came to Birtwick Park, and was soon put in a loose box. I saw 2 other horses. "My name is Merrylegs," said the fat grey pony in the next stall. Ginger, a tall chestnut mare, stood in the stall beyond. "What shall we call him?" Squire Gordon asked his wife. "He's as black as ebony and quite a beauty. Let's call him Black Beauty," she suggested. One day, John the coachman harnessed me to the dog cart to take the squire into town. It had been raining heavily, but we went along merrily until we reached the bridge over the river. "The river's rising fast," said the man at the toll gate. Though the waters had flooded the road up to my knees in some places, we got through to town. The master was a long time about his business, and it was dark by the time we approached the bridge again. Immediately I felt sure there was something wrong. "Go on, Black Beauty," urged my master, touching me with the whip, but I dared not go forward. Just then the toll gate keeper ran out of his house waving a lantern and shouting, "Hey! Halloo! Stop! The bridge is broken in the middle and part of it is carried away." The squire patted my head. "Dear Beauty, if you had not been so wise, we may have been drowned." My next adventure began when Squire Gordon and his wife decided to visit some friends in the town. They were to stay overnight at the hotel. Ginger and I were led into the stables. A young man smoking a pipe was asked to fetch some hay. "But put out that pipe first," shouted the ostler. A little after we had settled, I was awake again. There was a strange smell in the air, and Ginger was coughing and choking. All the horses were stamping in fear, and flames rose from where the forgotten pipe had been left. James, the squire's stable boy, who had come with us, flung open the stable door and, taking the scarf from his neck, tied it around my eyes. The fearless boy led me outside to safety. He rushed back for Ginger, and with my encouragement she trotted out. A moment later the stable roof crashed down. James was praised for his bravery, and soon after, when Mrs. Gordon's brother was looking for a coachman, James got the job. We were all sad to see him go, but in his place came little Joe Green, the gardener's boy. He was only 14 and small for his age, so he had to learn to groom a horse by looking after Merrylegs. I had been in this happy place for 3 years when we heard, through talk in the stable, that great changes were to come. The squire and his wife were to live abroad, so the big house and the horses were to be sold. Merrylegs was given to the vicar's wife, and Joe went to look after him. Then John put a saddle on Ginger and the leading rein on me and rode us across country to Earlshall Hall Park. The Earl and the lady lived in a very fine house, and Mr. York, the coachman, was in charge of the stables. John warned him that neither Ginger nor myself had been forced to wear a bearing rein to keep our heads held high. "I don't hold with it myself," said the coachman, "but her ladyship always wants to keep up with the fashion, however cruel it may be." One afternoon her ladyship came rustling down the steps in her silk gown, ready to go to the Duchess's garden party. "You must put those horses' heads higher. They're not fit to be seen," she cried. My head was forced up first, but Ginger saw what was coming and reared up, plunging and kicking wildly. At last she kicked over the carriage pole and fell down, after giving me a bad blow on my hind quarter. They dared not put Ginger in the carriage again, and not long after my leg was healed, the Earl and lady went to London, taking the coachman with them. The younger members of the family stayed in the country, and Lady Anne chose me to ride. She called me Black Auster, and often rode out with her cousin Ballantyre, who was mounted on Lizzie, a thoroughbred bay mare with a lively spirit. One day, while delivering a message to Dr. Ashley, Ballantyre and Anne decided to swap mounts. Waiting for the doctor's reply outside his cottage, a young boy drove several colts out of a nearby field. One bolted across the road, blundering against Lizzie's hind legs. Very frightened, she kicked and galloped off at top speed with Lady Anne terrified in the saddle. I neighed desperately until Ballantyre came running, and we galloped after Lizzie. We watched as, attempting a wide ditch, Lizzie leapt and fell. Motionless against the heather lay my poor mistress. I rushed back to the doctor's cottage with a passer-by for help and on to my mistress's home. When Lady Anne had recovered, Ballantyre assured her that she need never ride any other horse but me. I thought then that my life would be peaceful. It was not to be so. Reuben Smith, the groom, was to see to that. He had instructions to take a carriage to town for repairs and to ride me home, but instead he stayed drinking with his friends until night time. When the ostler who saddled me told him of a lost nail from my shoe, his response was uncaring. "It can wait till home," he shouted. "Have a care, Mr. Smith," warned the landlord, but Reuben rode me at a furious gallop. The road had been newly mended with sharp stones, and my shoe came off at the toll gate, but he would not stop. Soon my hoof was badly cut by the stones, and I stumbled and fell on both knees. It was nearly midnight when I heard the sound of Ginger's hoofs, and I neighed loudly. Then I heard the sound of men's voices as they came to the rescue. It took a long time for my knees to heal, but the scars still showed. "It's a great pity, but I cannot have knees like that in my stable," said the Earl. "He must be sold." It was a sad parting from Ginger when I had to leave, and was sent to be sold at a horse fair. As I stood in line with some other horses, I had my mouth, eyes and legs examined. Then I was trotted up and down to show my paces. One man spoke gently, while another buyer was hard-looking and loud-voiced. Just as I feared the second one was closing the deal, the first one returned and made a higher bid. My new owner was Jerry Barker, who drove a cab in London. He lived in a small house with his wife Polly and his children Harry and Lucy. This time they called me Jack. And the first week of my life as a cab horse was very hard. I had never heard such noise, and the crowds of horses, carts and carriages made me feel anxious. But I soon found I could trust my driver, and I became used to it. At least Jerry made a rule to keep Sundays free, when I would be stroked and petted by Polly and Lucy. Despite working hard, they were a happy family. But winter came and, after being out in all weathers, Jerry was taken ill. Although Jerry recovered and, by a stroke of luck, found work as a groom in the country, I had to be sold to another master. Skinner was an evil-looking man who ran a low set of cabs. He was hard on his men and horses. In this place we had no rest day, even in the heat of summer. Sometimes I was so fevered and worn that I could hardly touch my food. One day I was stopped at the railway station to pick up a family in their luggage. "I'm sure this poor horse cannot carry all of us," a young girl exclaimed. The driver was adamant we could hold the weight, as he was greedy for the fare. Reaching Ludgate Hill, the load was too much. I slumped to the ground. A while later I could feel water pouring in my mouth and some life coming back. A kind voice encouraged me to rise. This gentleman told Skinner I needed 6 months' rest. After just 10 days, he took me to a sale of horses. A young boy stroked my face gently and tried to persuade his grandfather to buy me. I raised my thin neck as well as I could and trotted on swollen legs. The man, who was a farmer, bought me to please his grandson. I was well looked after by the farmer, and within a year I felt young again. In midsummer, I was led out on trial to 3 ladies in the next village. Their groom attended to me well, and one day while stroking my face said, "That's just the white diamond marking Beauty had on his forehead." He surveyed me further. "One white hoof? It must be Black Beauty. You must know me. I'm little Joe Green." I looked at this fine-grown man who I hadn't seen since a boy. I nuzzled up to him just to let him know we were still friends. My troubles ended there, and now often when I look at Joe Green, I am reminded of the meadow at Birtwick and all my old friends.